Hi everyone! Thanks so much for joining me. My name is Amy Taylor. I'm a natural dyer and textile artist based in Chicago, Illinois. Today we're going to learn how to naturally dye fabric using kitchen extras, including onion skins, avocado pits and skins, turmeric, and leftover coffee grounds. We're also going to learn how to modify the onion skin bath using kitchen acids and alkalis such as vinegar, cream of tartar, and baking soda. Supplies today are a stainless steel pot, natural fabric, this means anything plant or animal based such as cotton or wool, dishwashing soap, and alum, aka potassium aluminum sulfate, aka pickling salt. Our natural dyes for the day are yellow onion skins, you can also use red onion skins, avocado pits and skins, cleaned and washed, turmeric powder, and leftover coffee grounds. If you're saving the avocado remnants and the coffee grounds, be sure to store them in the freezer to prevent them from getting moldy. Some optional extras to modify our colors are baking soda, or baking powder is also fine, clear vinegar or apple cider vinegar also works, and cream of tartar. Because our onion skin and avocado baths need to soak overnight, we're going to prep them the day before. Add your dye stuff to a pot filled with warm water. Cook your dye stuff for about 30 minutes on medium heat to begin the color extraction. After about half an hour, remove your pot from the heat and let it sit overnight. The next day, your dye bath should be super saturated. We're pretty much making a very strong pot of onion and avocado teas. The avocado pits and skins especially like exposure to oxygen, so this one's important to do the day before. For the onion skins, if you absolutely must do it day of, that's totally fine. Just be sure to leave it soaking off the heat as long as you can. To prep our fabric, we need to wash it ahead of time. This removes any chemical sizing that's on the fabric. This will allow our mordant and dye to bind to the fabric more successfully. Next, we're going to pre-mordant our fabric using alum. The word mordant comes from the Latin mordere, to bite. So we're essentially creating a chain of bites. This means our alum bites the fabric and our dye bites the alum, thus creating a strong chemical bond. When mordanting your fabric, you want to be sure to stir frequently, especially during the first 15 minutes, to allow the mordant to bite the fabric evenly. Since our turmeric and coffee don't need to sit overnight, we can make our dye baths while our fabric is mordanting. Simply add the dye stuff to a pot of warm water, and voila! Our dye bath is ready to go! You can also use fresh coffee grounds to dye your fabric, but I personally prefer to drink the coffee and use the leftover grounds for dyeing. If you're more of a tea drinker, you can also follow these instructions, but replace the coffee grounds with tea leaves. Now comes the best part, the dyeing. This step is the same for all of the different dye baths. We add our mordanted fabric to the dye bath and let it cook for minimum 1 hour. You can let it cook for longer than that, but I recommend an hour minimum. Protein fibers are fibers that come from animals, such as silk and wool. They absorb color more readily than cellulosic or plant-based fibers, such as cotton, linen, and hemp. Since these bags are made of cotton, I want to be sure to give all the ingredients plenty of time to bond in the pot together. Once you achieve your desired color, simply remove the fabric from the dye pot and rinse it in warm water until the water runs clear. Hang it to dry, and that's it! You have a brand new naturally dyed piece. An optional step with the avocado dye bath is to add a teaspoonful of baking soda or baking powder when you're ready to dye. Something about the alkali just pushes that pink color a little bit further in a way that I think is really beautiful. Mix it together until it's fully dissolved before adding your fabric to the dye pot. An important note is we always want to put our fabric into the mordant and dye baths pre-wetted. Because of something called capillary action, this ensures more even saturation and coverage of the mordant and dye. Because we're working with natural ingredients, every dye bath is going to produce a slightly different color. Due to variables such as soil health, sunshine, and rainfall, every batch of plant matter we use is going to dye a little bit differently. The plus side of this means that every bath is going to be totally one of a kind. In these examples, I'm dyeing these 100% cotton bags, but you can use this technique to dye any natural fiber. This means it'll work for cotton, linen, hemp, pineapple, lyocell, wool, silk. Anything that comes from a plant or animal will work using this system. The only fabrics that don't work in natural dyes are synthetic fibers. This means human-made fibers such as polyester. This is because of the chemical makeup of the fibers. Protein fibers like silk and wool are comprised of amino acids, whereas cellulosic fibers are made up of beta-glucose. The mordant and pigments are able to successfully bond to these materials, whereas polyester is unable to make a bond with the natural materials that we're working with. The first synthetic dye was discovered in 1856. Prior to that year, all fabrics that have ever been dyed were done so using natural dyes. One of the oldest known pieces of fabric found with traces of natural dyes on it was discovered in Peru and is dated to be over 6,200 years old. This means people were practicing natural dyes for 1,000 years before our first known examples of written language. Some dyes, such as our onion skins, are sensitive to changes in pH. This means we can modify our color using food-safe acids and alkalis. In these examples, I'm using clear vinegar and cream of tartar for my acids and baking soda as my alkali. You can replace the clear vinegar with apple cider vinegar and the baking soda with baking powder. Another modifier you can experiment with is citric acid, which you can get from the juice of a lemon or a lime. I want to note that all of the dyes and modifiers I'm using in this video are food safe and can be cooked in the same pots that we eat out of. Especially when seeking out alum or potassium aluminum sulfate, it's important to use one that is specifically made for pickling food. Some alum is industrial strength and not made to be cooked in the same pots we eat out of. Both McCormick and Saniti have great options for alum powder that are also food safe. The alum that I'm using for these projects is potassium aluminum sulfate. There's some commercial alum options that are simply comprised of aluminum sulfate, minus the potassium. These will still work, you just need to use a little bit more of it to achieve the same results. Some additional natural dyes that are super fun to experiment with are chamomile flowers and pomegranate skins. You can also experiment with edible flowers like marigold. Just be sure they're food grade so they're not treated with any toxic chemicals. To learn more about natural dyes, there are a ton of free and inexpensive resources. You can check out the blog on my website, MsAmyTaylor.com. MyWood.com also has a spectacular free PDF download and some free online lessons. The blog at botanicalcolors.com. You can also check out your local library for copies of some of my favorite dye books. These are The Art and Science of Natural Dyes, Shibori, The Inventive Art of Japanese Shaped Resist Dyeing, The Modern Natural Dyer, and anything written by Sasha Dewar. Please be sure to show off all of the beautiful things that you dye using the hashtag #CPLRadicalFit. You can learn more about my work on my website, MsAmyTaylor.com, or on my social media at MsAmyTaylor. Big thanks to Radical Fit and the Chicago Public Library.